what I want to do today is tell you some stories about things that we've learned, and there's 10 points I want to kind of talk about that I think have been important to our business to kind of get it where it is to today. So the first of those is lead in your own style. So what you may not know about me is I spent 11 years in the Air Force. I actually went to a place called the Australian Defence Force Academy, 18 years old. And it's a military academy where you do university. I did aeronautical engineering, and it's basically the leadership centre of the Southern Hemisphere. So I guess I learned a lot about leadership over that time. So what am I trying to lead to? Well, what I learned about leading people or leadership, which is crucial to business, especially entrepreneurial teams, is really summed up by the Army, Navy, and Air Force. Air Force is very different because the Air Force has, in its entire existence, they've always sent their officers to the front line. So they're always the ones that are dropping the bombs and harm's way, doing everything, but it's the troops on the ground that make sure that things are wired properly or refueled properly or bombs are armed and things have to happen. So it's a very different trust relationship from do as I say, don't ask questions, run over that hill to potentially your death, as opposed to, right, if you don't wire this properly, if I don't listen to you what you say, then maybe you don't put the right fuel in my aircraft or whatever else. So the real lesson I think I learned from that and from all this sort of stuff, especially working with small teams or in entrepreneurial teams, is you've got to find your own style. Don't just follow the books. Don't just listen to how someone else does it. Think about what's going to work for you, because otherwise it's just not going to work. Next is choose your team wisely. It is a marriage, right? There's no turning back. Well, it's going to be very painful when you turn back, put it that way. So this was my original team. It's my brother. Now, I got on with my brother pretty well. I'd been with the Air Force for a while. He was a physiotherapist, living in Hong Kong at the time. We got on well, but there's no problems. We got on really well. But for the last probably about 7 years we've been working together, I've spoken to him every single day, so I've probably got to know him a lot better through this process, and it's worked very well. The story behind Booktrack is, this is Mark on the left-hand side. It's a body double. This is the movie when it comes out. So this was 2007, and he was travelling on a ferry to and from work in Hong Kong, and he had this idea with headphones on that, you know what, when you read a book and a happy song plays at the right time, or a sad song with a sad part of the book, it's a much better experience. And he rang me up and said, hey, this is really cool, we should do it. And I said, you should, it's a really good idea and good luck with that. But he kept persevering, so eventually I said yes. And the other thing we realised was that every single other entertainment medium has sound at its core. So when you look at those scenes up there, that Peter Jackson, The Hobbit, or that video game, you can hear the sounds even though you can't physically hear them. You can see it coming off the screen. Mobile, everything around mobile now, some people got something plugged in their ear. And we just found it strange then that reading didn't have that dimension. So that was kind of where Booktrack came from. But to put it in context, this was 2007, right? So the Kindle hadn't even come out yet, and we wanted to put sound to books. We basically prototyped, patented, sat on it, market tested, and it wasn't until the iPad came out in 2010 that we finally had a device we could do it on, so we launched Booktrack then. So previously, remember, we spent 2 years working on Booktrack, and we created 40 titles. In 6 months, by opening it up for anybody to do it, they've now created 400,000 users have created 4,000 titles in 30 different languages, spent more than 3 years reading, and 35% come back 5 times or more. And all of that was without mobile. We only launched our mobile apps recently, so it was just through the browser. Now, this is really important. The Mafia is your team too. Now, I call it the Mafia. You might just call it your advisors or your helpers, but I'll explain why the Mafia. So, back to remind you, so this was Mark and I. I'd come from a flying aeronautical background. Mark was a physio. What did we know about publishing or music for that matter, right? We liked music and we liked reading, but we didn't actually know the industries at all. And it was this guy named Ross McConnell, who was running Kia at the time, Kiwi Expats Association, who was a family friend. And I actually went to meet with him, and I was actually wanting to see if he wanted to be CEO and run our business and take it offshore. And he sat down and he said, what you need is other people's money, because you and Mark know nothing about your industries, and until you get someone else's money to help you, you're going to really struggle. So he introduced me to this guy. His name's Greg Sitters, and Greg runs probably the largest angel fund in New Zealand called Sparkbox, which Ben back there works for now. And met with Greg over 3 meetings. He didn't say anything, and finally on the 3rd meeting he said this could be one of the biggest companies in the world, and yes, we're going to invest. And we're like, wow, that felt awesome. So then that led on to another introduction to Derek Hanley. So I don't know, Derek's well-known New Zealand entrepreneur, and it was actually, my wife said, you should reach out to Derek. Do you know him? He just sold the Hyper Factory. He was in a lot of media, and I said, I don't really know him, but long story short, I gate crashed a meeting, thrust an iPad into his hands, he tried it, and he goes, you've got to come to New York with this is awesome. My last point, and I'm going to hand over to Craig, is something again that I've learned in the United States is they use the word talent all the time. We don't use that here. It probably sits a bit and doesn't sit very well with us, But talent is absolutely everything to a business. When you're building a team, anything you're doing, you can get a long way on hard work, but I tell you what, talent will absolutely change your business. And some things that are happening overseas at the moment. So anyone here been to Venice Beach? Venice? Yeah, it's a pretty cool part of America if you haven't. So Google and Facebook and the top companies in Silicon Valley, they absolutely are fighting each other for talent, for the best talent. So what did Google do? They went and bought up an entire block in Venice Beach for people to live and work there. Why? Because it's a really nice part of the world to live and work out of. And so they decided to, they better do that. If they want the best people, they need offices in the best places. So with that, I'd like to pass over to Craig to kind of finish up on one of the things I think he's better at than anyone I know, and that is how to make teams great. So I'll pass it on to you now.
There's no magic formula. There's lots of helpful stuff out there. Deb covered a lot of it off. But at the end of the day, you need to have some real confidence in your own ability to read the people in your team, to read the people that are potentially coming into your team, and make a judgment as to whether or not you can work with them, whether or not they can work with the rest of your team. Trust your people too. Once you've got them, you really need to trust your people. You need to, that's why that engagement point, that bringing people on board is so important, because you need to be able to then hand over the work. So I'm going to talk about the journey in a little bit, but you need to be comfortable that you can actually hand over responsibility for delivery. I couldn't have done anything with my team or for Paul if Paul hadn't given me the accountability along with the responsibility to deliver what we needed to do, and I hadn't been comfortable in giving that across to my delivery team. One of the things that I learned very early on in the services game is that it's really important to keep track of chargeability and utilisation, and this term of resource comes up all the time, and it's really important if you want to respect your team and have them respect you, that you don't think of people as resources and you don't think of it as a mechanical thing. All of these people have places to be, things to do, they have families, they have parents or children. They all have things going on in their life that aren't part of the team that they're on or the work that they're doing. And those things influence their performance. And the more you engage, the more you understand your team as people, not as resources, the better you're going to go. And one of the things I learned very quickly is that you've got to take them on the journey. You've got to take your team on the journey. And so what that means to me is that hopefully anyone in one of my teams knows where we're going as an organisation or as a team within an organisation. They know where we're going, they know basically how we intend to get there, and they know where within that route that we're taking, where they fit, and more importantly they know what's expected of them and what their responsibilities and accountabilities are. If you understand yourself what the journey is, then you can be really clear, or you should try to be, with when you're designing the team, when you're thinking about who you want to bring on and why and what role they're going to fill. Think really carefully about where those boundaries are going to be. What are you going to let them just take care of, and what do you want to keep some ownership of? If you're really clear about that up front, those conversations become really easy if things aren't happening. What it took me a while to realise is that actually the other thing we need to showcase when people are thinking about joining your team is what opportunities do they have to take their own journey while they're with you.